Welcome everyone to today's multimedia presentation. My name is Harsirat Kaur. As early childhood educators, one of our most vital responsibilities is understanding and guiding children's behavior in ways that honor their individuality and support their overall development. This presentation, titled Meeting Children's Needs for Self-Esteem, Competence and Worth, focus on how we can intentionally foster these foundational qualities in early childhood settings. Throughout this session, we will explore the deeply intertwined concepts of self-esteem, competence, and worth. We will unpack how the environments we create and the relationships we nurture directly influence how children view themselves and consequently how they behave. By grounding our practices in the early years learning framework, we can implement deliberate pedagogical strategies and design meaningful learning opportunities that empower every child to thrive as a capable, confident, and valued learner. Defining self-esteem, competence, and worth. To effectively support the children in our care, we must first establish a clear understanding of the core concepts driving their emotional and social development. Let's break down self-esteem, competence, and worth. Self-esteem serves as the absolute cornerstone of all learning and well-being. This is not something that simply appears. It is actively built when children feel genuinely significant, respected, and accepted by those around them. Connected directly to this is competence. We define competence as a child's growing confidence in their identity as a learner, alongside their developing ability to successfully tackle new, unfamiliar challenges. Then we have a worth. A positive sense of self-worth is fundamentally constructed through relationships. It is the internal mechanism that answers a child's silent questions. Who I am and how do I belong? It is critical to recognize the context here. Identity is not fixed or predominated. Instead, it is continuously shaped by the responses of others and the exercise of agency within early childhood settings. Context and influences on behavior. Understanding child's behavior requires us to look closely at the surroundings, environment, and relationships, as these factors heavily dictate how a child acts. First, consider the environmental influence. When we design welcoming and inclusive environments, we actively reflect and affirm the diverse identities of a child and their families, signaling to them that they belong. This is deeply tied to the relational context. Relational pedagogy is the true foundation for identity construction, where when educators establish trusting relationships, they allow children to build secure base from which they can safely explore the world. This has a profound influence on behavior. When children lack self-esteem, they do not always have the words to say so. Instead, they may communicate their inner distress through withdrawal or outward frustration. Conversely, when children feel genuinely valued, it alters their behaviors, enabling them to take calculated risk in their learning because they know it is safe to try and fail. Connections, that is brain development. The concepts of worth and competence are not just psychological ideas. They are deeply rooted in neurological growth and physical development. Brain functioning itself is highly dependent on social context, as positive, caring relationships and reciprocal interactions play a crucial role in healthy brain development. Furthermore, a child's self-esteem is directly linked to executive function. Executive function involves managing complex emotions, developing vital self-regulation skills, and building the perseverance needed to navigate obstacles. We also need to look at neuroconnectivity. When children are fully engaged in play, their neural pathways are actively stimulated. This active brain stimulation helps them to develop crucial self-awareness and complex social negotiation skills. Every time we support a child through a social challenge or provide a safe space for play, we are physically helping them wire their brains for resilience, self-regulations, and long-term emotional success. Next one is holistic development and communication. As early childhood professionals, we must always view the child through a holistic lens, understanding that development cannot be compartmentalized. Holistic learning means that the cognitive, social, and emotional aspects of learning are interwoven. One cannot function optimally without the others, because these are areas which are so connected. Children are constantly communicating needs regarding their internal state. They use a complex mix of verbal and non-verbal cues to communicate their needs for comfort or to share their immense pride in their accomplishments. Our role is to read these cues and support their sense of agency. By exercises agency, children are able to influence events in their world. This active influence reinforces their senses of competence, showing them that their actions have meaning and that they have the power to impact their environment positively. Then next one is pedagogical strategy 1, that is secure, respectful, and reciprocal relationships. EYLF principle is secure, respectful, and reciprocal relationships. Our first intentional pedagogical strategy is rooted in the core EYLF principle of secure, is respectful, and reciprocal relationships. The description of this strategy is straightforward yet profound. Educators must provide consistent emotional support, being deeply attuned to children's feelings to foster a total sense of safety. When children feel secure, they are free to learn. To see what this looks like a practice, let's look at a common daily example. Imagine educator notice a child standing on the periphery, hesitant to join a busy sandbox activity. Instead of forcing the interaction or ignoring it, the educator intentionally sits nearby and offering gentle encouragement and softly narrating the child's efforts. The educator builds their confidence, providing the emotional scaffolding the child needs to step forward and participate fully. Strategy 2, partnerships with families. Our second pedagogical strategy focus on the EYLF principle of partnerships. This description for this strategy emphasizes recognizing families as the primary educators of their children. We must collaborate closely with them to align the child's sense of worth at home with their experience in the early childhood settings. Creating a seamless web of support. A practical example of putting this partnership into action is creating a shared success journal. This journal physically travels back and forth between home and the setting. Both families and educators use it to document a child's newly mastered skills, such as learning to put on their own shoes, mastering a new task. This shared celebration ensures the child experiences consistent validation across both of their primary environments. Next, strategy 3 is equity, inclusion, and high expectations. So the EYLF principle is equity, inclusion, and high expectations. The third pedagogical strategy we must embed it into our daily practice is equity, inclusion, and high expectations. The description of this principle requires us to view every single child as inherently capable, while actively providing reasonable adjustments so all children can experience genuine success. Inclusion is not just about presence, it is about active participation. For example, an educator might adjust the physical height of a woodworking bench or providing specialized easy grip tool so a child experiencing physical barriers can fully participate in a construction project. By intentionally adapting the environment, we ensure this child can engage alongside their peers, preventing frustration and ensuring they feel just as competent and successful as everyone else in the room. Fourth strategy is responsiveness to children. Moving from EVA-LF principle to practices, our fourth strategy is responsiveness to children. The description of this practice centers on valuing child-led ideas, interests, and personal strength to build internal motivation. When we respond to what child care about, we validate their internal world. As a practical example, consider a child who shows a sudden intense interest by complex puzzles. A responsive educator doesn't just leave them to it. They respond actively by sourcing increasingly difficult versions of puzzles and standing by to celebrate the child's persistence when they complete a particularly difficult session. This targeted responsiveness shows the child that their passions matter, directly feeding their desire to persist through challenges. Pedagogical strategy 5, that is cultural responsiveness. Our fifth pedagogical strategy is cultural responsiveness, which is an essential EVA-LF practice. The description here focuses on actively affirming cultural identities to build a deep, unshakable sense of belonging and worth for every child. A child cannot feel a sense of personal worth if their culture is invisible. For a practical example, look at how we structure our daily routines. We can meaningfully incorporate each child's home language into our daily greeting rituals and intentionally display authentic art from their specific community around the room. This simple yet powerful validation of their heritage serves as a tangible source of pride, reinforcing to the child and their family that their culture is valued and respected. Learning opportunity 1, that is the I Can Mastered Skills station. Resources are a dedicated area with open-ended materials, that is blogs, fasteners, art tools that children have already learned to use. Now let's look at the specific learning opportunity. We can set up starting with the I Can Mastered Skills station. The resource required for this is dedicated stable area equipped with open-ended materials like blogs, various fasteners, art tools that children have already successfully learned to use independently. The application of this space is intentional. Children are actively encouraged to demonstrate their skills to their peers, step into leadership roles, and act as the classroom experts for the day. The outcome for this setup is incredibly powerful for self-esteem. It is directly reinforces a child's sense of competence through the continuous repetition of successful actions while providing them with vital social recognition of their evolving abilities from their peers. Learning opportunity 2 is group problem solving projects. Our second learning opportunity focus on collaborative efforts through group problem solving projects. The resource needed for this is a long-term tangible project such as maintaining a community garden or working on a complex construction project that naturally required sharing, sustainable thinking over time. In terms of application, educators carefully scaffold the process. We help children navigate social roles, share tools, and collectively solve environmental or design challenges as they arise. The outcome of this collaborative work is highly impactful. It builds a deep sense of worth. Children experience the feeling of making a meaningful contribution to a group while practicing the successful social functioning required to be an active part of community. Learning opportunity 3, resilience and agency yearning. The third learning opportunity brings children together for resilience and agency yearning. The source required here is a curated selection of high quality picture books that clearly depict agency and resilience, including rich stories and histories of Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people. For the application, following the reading of the story, the educator facilitates a discussion where children are invited to share their own personal stories of times when they faced a challenge and didn't give up. The outcome for this intentional practice is twofold. It normalizes mistakes and challenges as a natural part of life, and it fosters a growth mindset, helping the children view persistence as a core component of their own competence. Learning opportunity 4. Considered risk taking in play. Our fourth learning opportunity takes us outside for considered risk taking in play. The resource needed for this is well-designed outdoor environment featuring natural elements like climbing, logs, boulders, or uneven terrain. For the application, educators do not step back completely. Instead, they actively support children as they identify, assess, and navigate risk, allowing them the space to safely test their own physical boundaries. The outcome of this supported risk taking is profound. Overcoming physical challenges builds core strength and spatial awareness while providing children with deep satisfaction. This satisfaction comes from the powerful realization that they are capable of doing difficult things for themselves, directly boosting their self-resilience. Learning outcome 5. Authentic choice boards. Our final structured learning opportunity centers on authentic choice boards. The resource required is a series of clear visual choice boards integrated into daily routines, allowing children to select preferred rest activity or pick a specific tool for a creative task. In application, child use these boards to exercise genuinely agency, making informed decisions that directly affect the flow of their day. The outcome of embedding these choices into our schedule is essential for identity development. It directly fosters autonomy and teaches children that their voice and choice truly matter in our space. This regular experience of control directly impacts and elevates their overall sense of personal self-worth. Group reflection and conclusion. Nurturing self-esteem, promoting agency, teacher's role, and summary. As we bring this presentation to a close, let's engage in a final reflection on our practice. Nurturing self-esteem requires us to constantly recognize that a child's self-belief is nurtured. When we combine high expectations with warm, deeply responsive interactions in promoting agency, we must remember that by offering genuine choices and supporting calculated risk taking, we actively empower children to see themselves as active citizens. When we value the small steps as much as giant leaps, we provide every child the foundation of worth and competence necessary for lifelong learning. Thank you.